I said to him straight up, I said, there's enough meat and volume in this project that I could work on it full time for, X amount of time. And my negotiation with him was that if you can at least match my salary in terms of current fees for the work for a period of time, I will hand in my resignation next week.
Welcome. This is the third and final part of the conversation with Chris Morley. If you haven't already checked out the previous episodes, I highly recommend you go check them out before watching this one. Otherwise, if you've seen them, let's get straight into it. So I do want to move on to the thing I was most keen about for this interview, which is
really?
Some of your journey from architecture student to sole practitioner, and this section based on practice. So yeah. Do you want to start off telling us where was your first job as a graduate and what did it involve?
Yeah, so I was going to say I'll go one step just before that, just before graduating, and it was really only in my final year of uni. I ended up doing some very loose student of architecture part-time work at a local place in town. Damien Schwalitz ran his own practice then, and another guy called John Adams. So I was working for both of those essentially on contract, so just an hourly rate. So even as a student of architecture, I had to go and get my own EmAGN. Wow. So you can do it for free. You just got to make sure you pay tax and super and do those things, which you learn along the way. The EmAGN, it's a business number, a registered business number, right? I should explain that for everyone that's listening.
Australian business number.
That's it. So, I started in that mode of operation really early. As I graduated, I then jumped into doing drafting for a building and maintenance company. As I left uni, we were kind of just in the middle of the second GFC that we had. But there were very few jobs around at the time. I'd actually already picked up the university job, right? So the balance in my week was that I went from working in a practice part-time while studying, got the tutoring gig, which was taking up time in my week. And then I only put myself out there to get another part-time job with a few more hours in a drafting building and maintenance company. So I didn't opt into that or hunting around for that full-time architectural position. I was quite happy to balance them. About 6 months after that, another mate of mine who I went through uni with, he was already working in practice, and I was working at Swanbury Penglaze Architects. Oh, yeah. They were recruiting, they needed some more staff, and he essentially put my name into the hat. So I went in for an interview and took the job. Part of that process in my employment is I was trying to tell them from day one that, I really cared about my tutoring role. And if the university was continuing to offer it to me, I wanted to maintain that obligation to the uni. They politely said, how about you come and do 6 months full time with us? And then we can kind of open the door back up and you can kind of get back into the tutoring space. So they were great in that. I knuckled down for 6 months, did that. Then the tutoring gigs came back up, and then consciously I balanced, about an extra 4 or 5 hours a week tutoring on top of full-time employment with Swanbury Penglaze in my first 3.5 years with those guys. And then through networking and a bloke that owned the cafe and a referral to a private client, I left Swanbury Penglaze, handed in my resignation and went out on my own. Wow. To do a significant residential job. It was just a massive project. So that's kind of my short story, I guess, in that. And then, so I've been running Echelon Studio since 2012, like late 2012. Actually, what is it? Melbourne Cup's early November, isn't it? So so the public holiday that we have there, my first day as a sole practitioner was a public holiday, which means I didn't get paid. So that was a bit stupid. In hindsight, I should have just stayed that one extra day at Swanbury Penglaze. But it comes with the learning on the job, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that's kind of my journey.
Yeah, did Echelon Studios then start up from that first residential job? Yeah, wow.
Yeah, absolutely. When I got introduced to the client, we had about 3 or 4 meetings really before I made a proper decision. There was conversations about whether or not, I would ask Swanbury Penglaze to take on the job, like whether or not I brought the job into the practice, whether or not I needed someone else to assist me with the job. Could I do it part-time outside of Swanbury Penglaze? And there's a whole bunch of kind of employment contractual arrangements, which meant I couldn't do that much external work on the side of my full-time employment at Swanbury Penglaze. So with those introductions and meetings with the client, I just said to him, and this is the 2 feet first scenario, I said to him straight up, I said, there's enough meat and volume in this project that I could work on it full time for, X amount of time. And my negotiation with him was that if you can at least match my salary in terms of current fees for the work for a period of time, I will hand in my resignation next week. And he, thought about it. And for him, he's a financially well-off individual, very humble in terms of his opportunity that he gave to me, but he committed to it.
Wow.
There was a risk there, but we were both taking that risk. And so, off the back of that, I started Echelon Studio, really. And I've always maintained my involvement with the university on top of that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how did you
Crazy.
once you had this big residential project, how did you start coming up with more projects and start finding out more work to do? Because I guess, was it just through referrals and stuff like this, or is that when you kind of created this business of yours?
No, and I've been very fortunate through the balance of the university role and being able to do Echelon Studio. All of my projects have been referral basis.
Wow.
Everything. So 10 years.
Wow. Networking.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And it comes from, I didn't grow up in Adelaide, so I, forgive me, I didn't go to a private school or do things like that. And not that you have to, but Adelaide is a very network orientated place, and it's small enough in terms of its scale that if you do a good job, people are happy to refer you, but you have to uphold that and you have to be accountable, even when you do make mistakes, right? Not that you need to, but there's nowhere to run and hide in Adelaide. Like, it is really an accountable place. You have to be doing good work at a good level consistently, and then they'll refer you. So it's a good way to say it. You can make your way into a network within Adelaide where it is pretty much referral basis, and referrals come from everywhere, right? It's the guy that ran the cafe, which was the first one. Then it's family friends were the next ones. Like early stage work, it's always a family friend or a family member that you're doing projects for. And then off that, and when you have a little bit of work that you can show people, there's a confidence in them engaging you to do other work. So I was gonna say, even last week I went out and I haven't put through a fee proposal for the project yet. So I haven't won the project, but that came off a cold call, which was still a referral in sorts, but from a project that I worked on back in 2013. Oh, wow. So an interior designer that I crossed paths with then was doing some interior design work for a developer. And he said to her, could you recommend any architects to work on a residential project? Because he wants to do some work at his house. She put forward my name. So great for me. That's nice that there's confidence there 6 years later. But also, who knows why my name was at the top of the list. Like, we barely crossed paths 6 years ago, yet somehow there was this level of confidence in what I delivered for another client. And she just said, go talk to Chris, which was nice, really humbling.
That is awesome. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, I will have to advertise at some point, mate. It can't go on forever. I will have to go and ask for jobs at some point.
I don't know. I mean, it's been 10 years?
10 years, yeah.
Jeez.
But don't get complacent. Goodness me, don't ever get complacent.
No. So could you tell us a bit more about Echelon Studios? What kind of projects is it that you're working on, and who's your ideal client?
Yeah. So primarily I do work in the residential sector, alterations and additions. So kind of extensions, budgets anywhere from kind of 350,000 up to 700,000. That is normally general project scope. I've got a couple of new build projects that I'm working on, but they've come, I was going to say, quite late in my career, only because now I think I have an ability to get into those projects a little bit deeper and quicker and deliver larger projects, because I've found that balance with my university and practice. I've now been able to isolate and segment time to really deliver larger projects, I guess, which is nice. Part of that is that also through the process, I've done things like commercial fit outs, so office fit outs, relatively simple spatial planning, internal fit outs, glazed partitioning, kitchenettes. I did a bunch of work for the aged care sector, did some nurses stations, courtyards. So I will as an architect or a designer, I will touch anything that I have an interest in, and particularly in projects where I feel like I can have an impact. For a little while there, I went back to Swanbury Penglaze and did some contract work with them, and that was to help deliver some larger projects. So I fluctuate significantly between those couple $100,000 residential alts and ads, and I go well and truly up to kind of $15 million mixed use developments and schools and commercial buildings and whatever.
Wow. Diverse.
Whatever. I would, the one thing I would love to do is to get into some object and furniture, but that's gonna have to be capital investment. So I'm gonna have to go and pay for things to be built. To be honest, no one's engaging me to do that just yet.
Is that a passion of yours, just furniture design or something like that?
Oh, I love it. To be honest, I think there's something wonderful in furniture where it's a scale that we completely interact with, like every second. So every corner, every detail, every skerrick of that surface is normally something that you engage with. I believe a lot in kind of haptic qualities, the touches and the sensors and things like that, the temperature of surfaces. They're fundamental. And I think you can get all of that richness in one object, which is furniture. And you can't always do that in a house. You can't deliver every surface to be something you engage with, I think. So yeah, I'd love to get into furniture.
That's awesome. Yeah, because it's definitely smaller scale, more of the senses, I'd say. Did you always have an ambition to run your own practice?
Yes, I think is the simple answer. Not from the point of not being a person that listens. How do you answer that? Not that I'm a person that doesn't listen, but I've always come with a little bit more confidence and self-assurance that my decisions come from quite an informed place and they're sensible. So with that, I've always wanted to kind of take a little bit of a lead in the decision making, and that comes with running your own practice. So that's given me the opportunity to be selfish. That's definitely not to say that, I don't collaborate. I work with interior designers all the time on projects, and it is really a kind of a give and take scenario, and you do work together on things. I just like to feel like I've got that little bit more control in the outcome. And sometimes when you're working for other people, it's not in your control. I don't like to be accountable for other people's decision making. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I was going to say, you've done a group assignment at uni, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. That's exactly the same. Hey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, what do you think are some of the key differences? So working for yourself compared to working for someone else. What are some of the key differences?
Responsibility, but responsibility in both aspects when you run a business. So there's project delivery, right? Asking, doing what the clients ask for, designing, making sure a project gets procured and delivered. But then the other responsibilities that come with that are actually running the business, doing the administration side of it, sending out bills and invoicing, paying your own bills, keeping a roof over your head. And the responsibility does go much further, but it's in different directions. So running your own business is certainly like an opt-in situation. I put myself here. So it comes with the territory. Whereas I think when you do work in practice, and certainly as you're in, let's say, lower or middle tier in a practice, so up to associate kind of level before you're at kind of senior associates and directorship roles, you're accountable for the delivery of the project, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. You're not necessarily accountable for the success of the business, and also then not necessarily responsible for the other staff members that are in there. So it comes with both, I think. But that's probably the distinct difference from my point of view. I was going to say, I'm leading into the other question. I know you were asking about sole practitionership, whether or not I actually do everything myself. Yeah. 9 times out of 10, I do. I am with a client from the start to the finish of a project. I do the initial meeting, I do the site measure, I get in the roof space, I, get installation all over me. Be careful of some really poor electrical work from some of the ages of the buildings we've got here in SA. And then, I deal with builders, I go through the tender process, I do contract administration, this other side of it. So, turnkey, I guess, is what you get from me as an individual. And I only take on projects when I've got a capacity to deliver them. So at the moment I could take on a little bit more work, but probably 2 more projects on the books, and I'd be stretched for 12 months really. And then it's just up to me to sustain that level of output or work. And I have, like, don't get me wrong, I've engaged and contracted some graduates along the way, and I certainly utilize interior designers as kind of a collaborative process. So that's probably as far as it goes. I'd love to employ people, but I've never pushed Echelon Studio into that space. So maybe that's, I spoke about the mentoring that I'm after at this stage in my career, and that's probably really where it is. I'm looking for a mentor out there that's going to give me the insight and the business knowledge to push Echelon Studio into something that is responsible for other people and staff and a team. So I don't know. Watch this space. We'll see what happens in the next year or two.
That's really cool. We've heard it here first.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
what just comes to mind when you're talking about that is just you've got so much going on, and it's in a sense that you're just pretty much this one-man army. You're doing everything yourself, one-man band, I guess. But I guess with that, does that mean you're constantly working with contractors and I guess experts in these different fields? You don't have to be, I guess, the expert at everything, or do you?
An architect, and I say this loosely, like, our responsibility is to have enough knowledge to be able to communicate with all the people that need to be involved in a project. So no, I'm not an engineer, a structural engineer. I'm not. I have some good fundamental knowledge about structure, but that comes with experience. The same goes for mechanical services, electrical, and all of that type of stuff. Right? It comes with the territory that you can communicate with those trades and those other professionals. So you need to be able to ask the right questions. And if no one can find the answer, you need to be able to know where to go and find the answer. So certainly, what's a good example? Current project I'm looking at working on. So this client that called through the other day. A part of that fee proposal that I'm going to submit is to let them know that I've already gone and spoken to heritage consultants about the existing conditions, the front half of the house, which is a contributory item in the area. So there's very little or cautious work that we can do to the front face of that building, but I'm offering that up as a part of my research and my knowledge to win the project. But I've had to go and ask some people I know to provide that service for me. So use the resources you've got to provide a complete picture and a successful outcome for the client. I think that's all you can do. Yeah.
Alrighty.
I felt like I get off topic, but I think that was relevant as well.
No, I think that's perfect.
Yeah, cool.
I think we've done pretty well. We're pretty much just on time, maybe a little bit over, but just one last thing, Chris. If you mentioned earlier that you're on Instagram or LinkedIn or anything, so if someone wants to connect with you or find out more about you, how can they go about doing that? I
think the biggest shout out, I was going to say for me, would really be the EmAGN SA Instagram profile. So at EmAGN, EmAGN _SA. I'd use that one to kind of get in contact, particularly for students and emerging architects and graduates. It's a pretty difficult time, so we're doing our best efforts to stay engaged, push out a lot of information about kind of health and well-being, particularly with everyone working from home. So that's really important, I think, to me. Echelon.studio is my own Instagram profile, otherwise LinkedIn, and then there's a university profile that's there. But however people would like to get in contact with me, they can do it that way, and I'm sure to respond, and then we can take the conversation whichever way it needs to go. So
that is awesome.
Yeah.
Chris,
thank you for letting me do that. Yeah.
Oh no, that's awesome. I'll put everything on the screen or in the description. Pretty much, if you want to find out more about Chris, there's plenty of ways to do that. You're a truly generous man. I appreciate you taking the time to chat with us and share us your wisdom and knowledge. But yeah, I just want to say thank you, and we'll leave it at that then.
Absolutely, man. And thank you for your time. And probably the only thing I'd like to add to that is definitely, I think, I can't wait to kind of catch up and have a coffee in person and, support you. I think, what you're doing is actually absolutely commendable. And it's great, at least for me, in a selfish way, to kind of get some local exposure for the Emerging Architects group. So thank you for letting us do that as well.
Oh no, I really appreciate it. That'll be awesome. Came for a coffee as well. That'd That'd be awesome.
That sounds good. Thanks, mate.
Alrighty, enjoy the rest of your day, Chris. Take care. So that is the finale of the conversation with Chris. I just wanted to say thank you so much to Chris for being such a great guest. He really is generous with his time. And if you guys enjoyed this, I highly recommend you just go message him on the platforms he mentioned earlier in the interview and just go say thank you to him. I'm sure he'd really appreciate that. If you guys just made it here and you don't know about the last parts, this is just part 3. So if you missed parts 1 and 2, I highly recommend you go check them out. And if you want to check out part 1, you can check it out here. If you want to check out part 2, it is also down here. I'm just kind of pointing on the screen thinking, I don't know if it'll be there or not, but press somewhere on the screen in the description. It'll be somewhere. Catch you guys and girls there.